Most people assume their dog understands a handful of commands and not much else. Sit, stay, come, the basics, but the science of canine language comprehension has moved well past that assumption. Dogs are not just recognizing sounds and responding to tone. Some of them are processing human words in ways that are genuinely closer to understanding than anyone expected. Today we are going through 5 specific words, backed by real research, that your dog processes with more depth and more meaning than you probably realize, and the science behind each one changes how you think about every conversation you have ever had with your dog. Their name. This one seems obvious. Of course your dog knows their name, but the depth of what their name represents neurologically is worth understanding properly. Your dog's name is not just a sound they have been conditioned to respond to. Research from Eötvös-Loránd University found that dogs process their own name differently from other familiar words, with a level of neural activation that suggests the name carries identity-level significance rather than simple associative meaning. When your dog hears their name, several things happen simultaneously. Attention orients, the nervous system activates toward the source, and crucially, emotional valence fires. The name is not neutral. It carries the accumulated emotional weight of every time it has been spoken in their direction across the entire history of your relationship. This is why how you say their name matters as much as when. A name said warmly activates a different internal response than a name said sharply. The word is the same. The emotional content is not. And your dog is processing both the identity signal and the emotional signal every single time they hear it, which is why using their name only in positive context is one of the highest value things you can do for the quality of their daily emotional experience. Their name is not just a label, it is an emotional environment they live inside every time you speak it. Treat it accordingly. Good. The word good, or its variants, good boy, good girl, good dog, is one of the most researched words in canine language comprehension, and what the research reveals is more interesting than simple condition-reward association. The Nagasawa study and subsequent work on dog brain responses to human speech found that dogs process praise words in the left hemisphere of the brain, the same hemisphere humans use for semantic language processing, while simultaneously processing emotional tone in the right hemisphere. The reward center activates most strongly when both the word and the tone are positive. A praise word delivered flatly produces a measurably weaker response than the same word delivered with genuine warmth. What this means is that good is not just a conditioned signal your dog has learned to associate with reward. It is a word they are processing for both content and feeling simultaneously. They are, in a neurologically meaningful sense, understanding it on 2 levels at once. The practical implication is significant. When you tell your dog they are good and you actually mean it, when the warmth in your voice is genuine rather than performed, they receive something richer than a training marker. They receive emotional confirmation, the kind that tells them not just that they did the right thing, but that you are pleased with them specifically in this moment as the individual they are. And that confirmation lands in a different, deeper place than a treat ever could. Most owners say good dozens of times a day without thinking about it. The research suggests it deserves more intention than that. Said with genuine feeling, directed at your specific dog in a moment of real connection, it is one of the most potent positive signals in your entire communicative repertoire. No. No is probably the word dogs hear most frequently after their name, and it is the word most owners use with the least precision and the most inconsistency, which matters enormously for how well the dog actually processes it. Research on dogs' understanding of human negation found that dogs do register no as a meaningful signal distinct from neutral sounds and other words. But the depth of that understanding is heavily dependent on consistency of use. A dog that hears no applied to 10 different behaviors in 10 different emotional registers, frustrated, amused, sharp, distracted, processes it as a general emotional alert rather than a specific semantic instruction. The dogs that understand no most clearly are the ones for whom no has always meant one consistent thing, not I am annoyed right now, not stop doing that particular thing in this particular moment, but a clear, calm, reliable signal that the current behavior needs to stop. Tone is critical here in a way that works against most owners. The sharper and more emotional the no, the more the dog's nervous system responds to the arousal in the delivery, rather than the semantic content of the word. A calm, clear, single no lands, with more precision and more genuine comprehension than an emotional one. The word works, but only as well as the consistency and the calm behind it. Every time you say it while frustrated, you are teaching your dog that no means their owner is dysregulated, not that a behavior needs to stop. Those are very different pieces of information. Stay. Stay is one of the most semantically complex words in a dog's functional vocabulary, and research suggests that dogs who have been trained on it process it as a genuine conceptual instruction rather than a simple behavioral cue. A study examining dogs' understanding of duration-based commands found that trained dogs could generalize the concept of stay, applying it to new positions, new environments, and new contexts they had not been trained in specifically. This kind of generalization is a marker of conceptual rather than purely associative learning. The dog is not just repeating a trained behavior. They have abstracted something about what stay means, remain in this configuration until released, and are applying the abstraction flexibly. What makes stay particularly interesting from a psychological perspective is what it asks of the dog's impulse control system. Staying requires the dog to override competing motivational drives, the pull toward movement, toward you, toward interesting stimuli in the environment, in favor of a held behavioral state. Dogs that do this reliably have not just learned a word, they have developed a relationship with delayed gratification that research consistently links to broader emotional regulation capacity. Stay is, in the most literal sense, a word that exercises the part of the dog's brain responsible for self-regulation, which means teaching it well does more than produce a useful behavior. It builds a more emotionally regulated animal. And a more emotionally regulated animal is a calmer, more confident, more resilient companion across every other area of their life. Come, or its recall equivalent in whatever word you use, is the word with arguably the deepest emotional resonance in a dog's functional vocabulary. And the research on how dogs process it reveals something that goes well beyond trained response. Studies on recall behavior in dogs found that the speed and reliability of a dog's response to come is one of the strongest behavioral predictors of attachment security. Dogs with secure attachment to their primary figure respond to recall faster, with more enthusiasm, and with less distraction interference than dogs with anxious or avoidant attachment styles. What this tells us is that come is not processed by your dog purely as an instruction. It is processed through the filter of the relationship. How your dog feels about you, the accumulated emotional history of your bond, directly shapes how they respond to this one word. A dog that trusts you, that has always found coming to you to be safe and rewarding, hears come as an invitation. A dog with a more uncertain attachment history hears it with more ambivalence. This is why recall is considered one of the most relationship-sensitive behaviors in a dog's repertoire. You cannot train a reliable come independently of the quality of the bond it is rooted in. The word works best when it is backed by a history of coming to you always being the right decision, safe, rewarding, and never the end of something good. Never call your dog to you for something they find unpleasant. Never use come and then immediately leave, crate, or correct them. Every time coming to you produces a good outcome, you are deepening the word's emotional charge. Every time it produces a bad one, you are eroding it. The reliability of your recall is, in the most direct sense, a measure of the trust your dog has in you. The dog that comes to you joyfully from any distance and any distraction is not just responding to a word. They are expressing in the most behaviorally direct way possible that coming back to you is something they genuinely want to do. That is not obedience. That is trust made visible. Your dog is listening more carefully than you think. The question is whether what they are hearing is worth the attention they are giving it. Drop a comment. I read every single one. Subscribe. New video every week. See you next time.